Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our SoCal First Time Buyer Market Update. My name is Stephen Meade with Domicile Real Estate, where we are on a mission to help California's renters become homeowners. So if that is you or if it is anyone that you know, definitely recommend this video. So what do we put the title on this? Are we going backwards again? And I think the answer to that is yes, in terms of what is good for first-time or entry-level buyers in our Southern California market. And why am I saying that? Well, we saw some improvements for these buyers, and now it looks like 2 weeks later, we're going backwards. We're taking some of that away. And I think I have a reason why that is happening, a theory that I believe even more strongly in today than when I first offered it up probably about 6 months ago. And that is that whenever we have an interest rate bump, there is a period of time, usually 2 to 5 weeks, where buyers are a little bit shell-shocked or a little bit unsure, and that creates kind of this environment of a soft market for those 2 to 5 weeks. Then people recognize the new normal, and things start to get competitive again. And I have another reason for that, too, that I'm going to talk about as we go through everything. But let's go ahead and get started. So here we are looking at our closed prices. Now, remember again that these are prices based on transactions that were negotiated, right? Negotiated 4 to 6 weeks ago. So on average, this data is 5 weeks old. And what we do is we try to take a look at something that approximates that entry-level end of the market. And the reason why we do that is because entry-level buyer dynamics are often different than other whole market analytics. And so what we've done is we've looked at kind of a mythical 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, which is here in the blue line, and an entry-level condo, which is a 2-bed, 2-bath here by the red line. And what we do is instead of looking at the median home price, right, for LA and Orange counties, we look at the quartile. And basically, if you had a ranking of 100 homes that have sold from least expensive to most expensive, a median would be the 50th most expensive home. And the first quartile would be the 75th most expensive. So it's kind of halfway between the bottom and the middle. And as we look here, we've actually seen a little bit of relief on this entry-level side, right? Like we've seen prices, they kind of came up here from that 690, right, towards the beginning of the year, and they're kind of bumping on a ceiling a little bit. And we've also seen a leveling out here on our entry-level condos. Now, bringing this to a point of relevance, right? Let's go take a look at what are the payments that we're looking at on this. And remember, we calculate our payment based on 5% down. This includes mortgage insurance, includes property taxes, and HOA fee in the case of our condo. So we're at $6,207 for that entry-level single-family home and $4,983 for that entry-level condo. Those numbers might sound really scary, but remember a couple of things that are important when comparing this to rent. Number one, most important thing to remember is that these payments include a decent amount of principal reduction. That is money that is going to reduce the loan amount. Think of it like a long-term savings account, like giving money to your 401k. The second thing to remember is that if you can qualify for a $6,207 a month payment, there's a very good chance you are being beaten up pretty heavily on income taxes without enough deductions. So you will have some changes to your tax liability, potentially significant changes that might even amount to $1,000 a month. So, definitely bear that in mind when looking at these numbers. Now, if we break this down to what kind of income is required for these payments, right? If we look at this, we're around, just a little bit over $150,000 is the required household income for our entry-level single-family home, assuming no other debt, and $122,000 for our entry-level condo. Remember, though, this is based on 5% down. If you're a higher down payment buyer, obviously your income qualifying will be less. And remember, this is based on a household. So, for example, this could be one person making $100,000 a year and another household member making $60,000. That would qualify you. It could be two household members making $80,000 a year. Obviously, there are a lot of different permutations on that. But let's shift gears and talk a little bit about what is going on in the market and why we're saying that things are going backwards and not in a good way necessarily for home buyers, and what we think is going on. So If you look at this, this is our absorption rate, right? This is talking about the rate that homes are coming onto the market versus the rate that homes are leaving the market by way of going into escrow. And if we look at that, any number above 80% is a very competitive market. We see that entry-level single-family home has shot back above 80% here, and kind of gone up. And our condo market is leveled out a little bit, but still in a very competitive 77%. I think many people would have thought the interest rate bump would have pushed these numbers down. Why didn't it do that? Let's go out of share here and kind of talk about this as an aside. Why is it that the market is not softening like we think? And my theory on this is that we have a number of buyers. I'm going to call them shadow buyers because that sounds really cool, even though, to be honest, there's nothing that spectacular about them. These are people, right? And let me back up a second. When economists talk about demand for housing, what they are normally talking about is people who are in the streets with money in their pockets, driving around, looking at houses, getting ready to write offers, right? And that is one measure of demand. That's the obvious demand, right? People who are out there every weekend going to open houses, they are writing offers, they are planning on buying a house. But there is a second group of people that is gigantic in our market right now. And that second group of people are what I call the shadow buyers or shadow demand. These are people that are just on the sidelines, right? And should there be any softening in that market, those people are going to rush into it, right, to kind of pick up the slack. And I think that's what we're seeing happening in this market. The second there's a little bit of softening, there's this group of shadow buyers ready to start coming in to keep that marketing from softening very much at all. And it's kind of propping things up. So I think that's the reason why we're seeing kind of this effect where, interest rates go up and we don't necessarily see a big drop in realized demand. So if we look at our total inventory, that kind of is another clue in what's happening right here. So if you take a look, where were we last year, right? This was the beginning of the decline. But a couple of weeks ago, we had a nice little bump about a month ago in inventory. I mean, a bump up here for both our entry-level single-family home and our entry-level condo. But those bumps, unfortunately, have not been long-lived. They are now fizzling out and starting to reduce. If you look here, we kind of skate through the early fall, and then as soon as we hit November, things just really kind of decline until they pick up in the new year. That tends to be how our inventory works. We never got much of a big gain this year, and it looks like we're starting to turn that corner for that gentle decline, which steepens as we get towards the end of the year. I wish I had some better news on that front, but I don't. So, what's the overall message if you're a buyer here? I think if you're sort of waiting for this magic moment where it's suddenly going to be easy to buy a home, I don't think that's coming. By the way, funny interaction on Facebook earlier today. Someone mentioned, wow, back when interest rates were lower, they could have afforded a home. Maybe they should have bought a home 40 years ago when the interest rates were more affordable. Well, guess what? Wait until the end of the video. I've got a little funny second part to that story that I am going to share with you. So if we take a look at our 14 days still active, that's kind of another measure of market competitiveness. Lower is more competitive. Guess what? We have not softened where we were last fall. So even though rates are where we were last fall, market conditions are not. And that is why we're not seeing kind of the wholesale price reductions that you might expect to see. And then finally, we've got relative demand, right? This is measuring, if we said and suppose that no new homes came on the market, how long would it take to run out of the houses we have? A lot of times the car business, they call this days of inventory. In the home business, we measure it in weeks, but we are at 5.5 weeks for our entry-level single-family home. That is actually a decline, but still a little bit higher than it's been through the spring. So there's a little bit of relief there if you are a would-be home buyer. And our condo, we've got a decent amount of relief here at just under 7.5 weeks. We haven't seen those numbers since February of this year. Of course, it's still not nearly as good in terms of inventory as it was last fall. Where were we last fall in October? 10 and nearly 12 weeks of inventory, respectively, for those single-family homes and those condos. Okay, so I told you the first part of a story. Someone on Facebook mentioned, wow, I wish I would have bought a home when I could back 40 years ago when interest rates were more affordable. Well, guess what? I have some news today. Where our interest rates, a 30-year fixed, is around 7.25% to 7.5%. We'll say in the low to mid sevens. Where were interest rates in 1983, 40 years ago? Well, in 1983, the average mortgage rate for the year for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage was 13.24%, nearly double what it is today. So there's two lessons to learn from this. One, things could be way worse. So if you're a buyer saying, I don't know how they can get any worse, well, I've got news for you. Look back through history, but ways they, in fact, can get worse. But the other thing is to have a little bit of a sense of perspective as well, and understand that while I'm not exactly enthused with rates that are over 7%, I also know that this is not a situation that will last. And in the grand scheme of things, it is probably not really that bad. By the way, just to let everyone know, less than a decade after those 1983 rates, they were significantly lower in the sixes, over going in the half. So things do get better. If you are a person who is out there thinking, I would like to someday own a home in Southern California, I'm guessing that's a lot of you if you're watching this video, or if you know someone that should be thinking about buying a home, we would love to connect with you. There are links down below in the description for you to go ahead and do that. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you know when we have new videos that come out. And questions and comments, of course, we love those too. And thanks so much for watching as always, and we'll see you again real soon.